let's tap into that Saquon angle a little more because we witnessed history when it comes to Saquon Barkley's performance, not just in the playoffs but throughout the regular season. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I think we knew he would be productive in this offense with this offensive line. I don't think any of us foresaw the numbers he put up. I mean, he arguably put up the most perfect season we've seen by a running back, like offensive player of the year, the rushing title, Super Bowl trophy. I mean, outside of Terrell Davis, we haven't seen a running back have a season like this. I mean, in the passing era. You get what I'm saying? So this is, did Saquon exceed your expectations? Did you expect this level of production? I mean, just walk me through your perspective on Saquon's season and his overall impact on his team. I mean, you've touched on it already a little bit.
Yeah. When you take into consideration his injury history when he was with the Giants, obviously he was playing behind a very porous line with the Giants. When he got here, I expected him to have a good season. I was thinking 1,400 yards would be a phenomenal season for him.
Same here.
Nobody ever thought he could have got to 2,000, and he could have broken, the all-time record. But the team decided not to push it, and I understand why. And then you take into consideration he is a selfless player. You go back to the one game where he could have broken his own personal best, and he said, "No, let the young dogs eat." He was done. A lot of players will say, "Yeah, let me get that record." No, he said, "You know what? Let the young dogs eat. Let them get some touches as well." Very selfless player. And everybody on the team just gravitated towards him from day one. But what a phenomenal specimen. I remember Malcolm Jenkins saying years ago when Malcolm was still playing with the Eagles, I remember Saquon running down the sideline and Malcolm hitting him along the sideline, and he just bounced off Malcolm. Malcolm said, "This man had some of the biggest thighs I've ever seen." You're trying to wrap your arms around his thighs. Some of the biggest, strongest thighs he's ever seen. And, man, once he got behind his Eagles' dominant offensive line, it was like turning a colt loose out of a corral. I thought the Eagles would get to a point where they might overuse him when he had 300-something plus touches. I thought there was a possibility that, you might overuse him. But obviously that was not the case because you looked at the way he ran the football in the playoffs. It was like he was fresh every week. Give me the ball. Give me the ball. That's all he wanted to do, man. And basically he is the cog in that offense. We can talk about Jalen. We can talk about A.J. Brown. We can talk about Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. Saquon Barkley was the cog that made that offense work. Obviously, no one man does anything by himself on an offense. But his ability to hit a hole, cut back, break tackles, and who will ever forget this dude jumping over somebody backwards? That was one of the best. And I've watched running backs, Tone, for decades. I've never seen a running back spin to get out of trouble and turn around and jump backwards over somebody and keep going. That was one of the most phenomenal plays I've ever seen. For a guy that big to have that kind of agility was simply incredible.
That's the thing. He provided along with the stats, he provided so many iconic moments throughout that season. Moments that we're going to talk about these 10, 15, 20 years from now. Like that season, the backwards hurdle. We may not see a move like that in football ever again because that's a dangerous move. That's dangerous. Yes. And when he broke that down, he was just speaking on how he just reacted. His body just took over at that point. Speaking of iconic moments in Saquon, have you ever seen, and you've been covering this game for a long time, have you ever seen a playoff performance the way Saquon delivered in that divisional round against the Rams? I mean, and before you answer, factor in all the variables, the elements with the weather, how close of a game it was. Hurts goes down with the injury, comes back in the game. The gravity of the situation, the moment, right? I mean, it was the type of scores, the type of touchdowns, the moments it created. Have you ever seen anything more iconic than that performance?
Yeah, I can say I've seen some, but that would be up there as well. Okay. Considering what he did in that game, what he was called upon to do, and everybody knew he was going to get the football. The Rams knew it also, and they still couldn't stop him, And that's what makes it even more special when everybody's gearing up to stop you and they still can't stop you. that makes it even, that puts it on that iconic pedestal. He's a straight money player. The thing is, he doesn't fumble. His acceleration is incredible. His power, his agility, what he's able to do in open space. And you're not going to tackle him. You're not going to arm tackle this man. I tell you what, his season is a season most running backs could only dream of. And in a close game like that, what do you want to do? You want to keep the clock running. You want to keep the ball out of the opponent's hands, because let's face it, the Rams were moving the ball pretty good on that Eagles defense, something
they were.
Not many offenses had done all season long against this Eagles defense. And they were running the ball. And obviously with Saquon's ability to do what he did, he had the clock in their favor, because the more the Eagles held the ball, the less the Rams offense could get on that field. And I think that was one of the deciding factors in that game as well.
Yeah, that moment where he took off running, the snow's coming down.
Oh,
you know what I mean? And then he's smacking his helmet. Like, it was just like, it was I think about it and it gives me chills to this day. And I bring all this up to get to the point where we talk about Howie Roseman's decision to give him another contract only a year into the 3-year deal he signed. I mean, Howie Roseman has kind of been going against the grain. He's been going against what we believe to be his conventional wisdom, right? Paying a linebacker and Zack Baun 3 years, $54 million, 51 million, 34 million guaranteed. Saquon making him the highest paid running back, giving him 20 plus million a season. When you think about that move to extend Saquon again, paying Zack Baun, the linebacker, again, he's taking risk on guys that he decided to bet on. And like, how is it for you as somebody who's covered Howie Roseman and his team for well over a decade? How is it for you to just see the evolution of Howie Roseman as a GM and how he's been allocating the resources and kind of just been going against what we believe, again, to be his conventional wisdom?
Well, I love that Howie admitted a couple of years ago he had to realize that he wasn't always the smartest guy in the room. And if you go back a couple of seasons, when I had him on a show that you were producing at the time with me and Rob Ellis, when we had Howie on, and Howie talked about how his owner, Jeffrey Lurie, said, why aren't you drafting more guys from that SEC conference? And then he said even his grandfather asked him, why aren't you drafting more guys from that SEC conference? Because if you look at their draft history, they never drafted from the SEC. And then all of a sudden, Howie said he woke up. He started listening to a scouting department more. He started listening to outside comments more. And he had to realize that he needed more input in terms of making this team one of the elite teams in the National Football League. And, as a person, I don't care what you do in life, Tone. Once you stop growing, you become stagnant. I don't care how young you are, how old you are. You can always learn something from somebody. Always have an open mind to learn something. And that's what Howie had to learn the hard way. And if you look at his drafts the last 3 years, it's the epitome of why this team has emerged as good as it is. Look at the players that are contributing to this team or have contributed to this team in 2024-25. It's because Howie had to change his mindset, open his mindset up, and start looking at different types of players that he wasn't looking at before. I think if you go back even farther, the fact that Howie was given a second chance when a lot of people would have been jettisoned out of there, and I'm talking about going back to the Chip Kelly era, when Chip Kelly basically got Jeffrey Lurie to cast Howie aside, put him in a closet, and let Chip run the whole show. 9 times out of 10, a GM in that situation would have been fired. But Jeffrey kept him on the back burner, and once they fired Chip Kelly, brought him back to the forefront, even gave him another title as well. And that's when Howie basically said he was humbled and had to start reevaluating himself. And then, of course, over the last 3 years, as he continuously kept getting asked questions from outside people looking in, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? That's when Howie had to take a really good look at himself in the mirror and say, I've got to change the way I go about doing things. And lo and behold, he did. And what do we see now? Defending Super Bowl champions in 2024.
And to your point, I think for myself, I kind of get alarmed when I see Eagles fans, some, not all, because they get offended when you say most, but some of the Eagles fans have kind of been critical of Howie Roseman's decisions this offseason, right? Letting Josh Sweat walk, letting Milton Williams walk. letting Darius Slay, Isaiah Rodgers walk, Oren Burks, who people felt like that was a pretty easy deal to make. Trading CJ GJ, I think that was the one move that really alarmed people and set people off. For me, I'm looking at this guy who's been able to draft extremely well over the past handful of seasons. I mean, he's really learned since that Jalen Reagor draft. And he doesn't get enough credit for his 2018 draft. You know, finding Dallas Goedert, finding Jordan Mailata, Avonte Maddox in that same draft, Josh Sweat in that same draft. Those guys were very productive for you. You know what I mean? Doesn't get enough credit for that draft class, but primarily since the Jalen Reagor draft class, and Hurts was a part of that draft class, believe it or not. So that's the gem from the Jalen Reagor draft, Jalen Hurts. But it always blows my mind when people begin to waver or lose faith in Howie Roseman when he's a two-time Super Bowl champion general manager, has won 2 Super Bowls with 2 different head coaches, 2 different starting quarterbacks, completely 2 different rosters. Let's be honest about that. Why do you think there's this hesitancy or this nervousness over the course of this offseason with the Eagles fan base? Why do you think that is?
Human nature. It's human nature. I don't care what you do, how well you do it. You never please everybody. There's cynics out there all the time, you know, and you can't just please everybody. It's a what have you done for me lately? And even though they've won the Super Bowl, people are panicking now. What's happening to our defense? And here's another part of Howie's growth process. He told us early in this offseason, he said, look, when it comes to free agency, don't expect me to do things I've done in the past. They've put so much money into their offense. And then, of course, they give Saquon Barkley that extension. Look at the money they've given to 2 wide receivers, gave them both extensions. They just reworked Lane Johnson's money. Lane Johnson is going to get something like $38 million guaranteed over the next 3 seasons. Jordan Mailata got a contract as well. You look at the Jalen Hurts, $250 million contract. So you look at the money they've invested into this offense, and something had to suffer. And so, sure enough, it's the defense. And of course, when you win the Super Bowl, everybody wants a piece of you. Look at the volume of coaches they've won. Kellen Moore, who helped Jalen Hurts put together one of his best season as a pro, is now gone. He's down in New Orleans. Look at the coaches he took with him down there as well. So now, when you're the king of the hill, everybody wants a piece of you. And so Howie basically told us, hey, look, we're not going to be what we were on defense. Not saying we can't be a good defense, because when you look at the pieces that are still there, they should be a pretty good defense. It may not be a number 1 defense, but it should be at least a top 10 defense with the pieces they have. They have a lot of draft capital coming up this year. And knowing Howie, he's still going to sit back and wait. Probably could be tomorrow, but it could be April or May. He's going to pluck off some veteran who's sitting out there. And the more they sit out there, the more their numbers decrease. And Howie will pick them off, you know, at a much decreased number. So, you know, Howie has been honest with us. And, you know, those guys, their contracts came up at the right time. Milton Williams gets a $100 million contract with the Patriots.
Howie wasn't paying that. He wasn't paying that.
He's not going to pay that. Look at the money that Josh Sweat got to go back to go to Arizona with, you know, the defensive coach there, who's the head coach down there. It wasn't going to pay. You know, he wasn't going to pay that. You know, so they had to, you know, he made the trade for CJ. And CJ, you know, who is as outspoken as they come, said basically, hey, look, man, those young guys got to play. Those young guys need to get paid as well. I get it. You know, so he wasn't bitter about leaving. He knew there was a possibility. Darius Slay making big money. He knew that he was going to be gone. He said he would like to finish his career in Philadelphia, but he knew the prospects of that happening was slimming up. Lo and behold, he signs with Pittsburgh. So they basically knew what the deal was. And so now we're going to be in another youth movement. How is he going to add? Hopefully he has another great draft like he did the last 2-3 drafts. But he's going to have to rely on a lot of kids again who have grown up. You know, the luxury is having a young defense that is a Super Bowl winning defense, because they know what it takes to get the job done. They're going to be able to pass along valuable information for a whole new crop of rookie players who are coming in. Hey, this is the way we do things here. This is what we need to do if you want to be better than the rest. This is how we need to work. This is how we need to film study. This is how we need to approach practice each and every day. So it's going to be a young team again. The offense is set. This offense is set to score 25, 28, 30 points a game. If the defense can just make enough significant stops, they're going to be one of the elite teams again in the National Football League.
Yeah, for sure. D Gun, man, you've been giving me so much time. I just got a couple more for you. I know you got to get back to the family, so I appreciate you for making the time that you made already, man. Make sure you guys smash that like button. Make sure you guys are subscribed to Chalk It Up Sports, where no matter if we win or if we lose, we just got to charge it to the game. We're joined by our guy D Gunner. Now, to your point about not paying those guys and really leaning on your young guys, I think Howie is also thinking about it from this perspective, right? Yeah, I lost Milton Williams. Yeah, I lost Josh Sweat and all those other guys. But here's the reality. Here's the cool reality. He deems those guys as replaceable. And he's made it very clear that I'm investing heavily on offense. And if I feel like you're transcendent or you're a playmaker or you're a difference maker, somebody I can't replace on defense, I will pay you. That's the thing Howie Roseman has always shown so far over the past several years. He will pay you if you produce. Right. And if you produce at an extremely high level that can't be replicated. Right. And I think he's looking at it from the perspective of, let's be honest about this. I got to make way for the Jalen Carter contract. He's going to make north of 30, 33, $34 million a year. I'm going to have to make way for a Quinyon Mitchell contract at some point. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, he's going to get paid top tier money. We just saw what Derek Stingley got paid. We saw what J.C. Horn got paid recently, right? And J.C. Horn can't stay healthy, and they still paid him all that money. So he's looking at these positions that it just so happens that these high value positions are where his best players are. Jalen Carter at DT, these guys are getting wide receiver money now. So he can't play the game and put himself in a Dallas Cowboys situation or a Cincinnati Bengals situation and pay guys super late. And next thing you know, you're paying them at the exact market rate instead of paying them just below the market rate because you got in early. That's what makes Howie Roseman special. That's why he's one of the best GMs, if not the best GM in football, because he knows how to get in early.
Knows how to move money around too to make cap space to get what he wants as well. And you're right. He knows they're going to have to pay some defensive players in a couple of years. And when he has to pay those defensive players, some of the offensive players are going to fall by the wayside. When you think about it, AJ and Devontae got their money now. In a couple of years, who knows if they're going to be with the team or not? Lane Johnson, 2-3 years from now, he's going to be gone. Jordan Mailata got his money. So Howie knows he's got another whole crop of players on the other side who are going to have to get paid as well. But you're right, especially Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter could, if he continues to play the way he has, he's going to reset the bank for defensive linemen getting paid in the National Football League. I mean, the young man's already being compared to Aaron Donald, who's one of the best that ever do it at his position. So the accolades are well-deserved when it comes to a Jalen Carter. And then, think about it. You mentioned, Quinyon Mitchell. What about Nolan Smith? If you decide you need to keep him, Cooper DeJean, Keely Ringo, those type of guys, they're going to be up in a couple of years, or in the final year of a rookie contract. And as we know, Howie likes to sign players that they deem that they want to keep well before they hit free agency. So they'll hit these guys up either during the offseason prior to their last year or somewhere along the line of their last years in a contract to try to solidify something. So Howie is the best in the game in terms of moving money around to fit what he needs under the cap. And you got to give him kudos for that. So it's like the defense is suffering now, but it will take care of itself in the long run. That's why I can't wait to see what they're going to draft, not just in general terms this year, but in terms of defensive players to try to plug some of the gaps coming up for 2025.
Yeah, because you look at those free agent signings and you say to yourself, okay, I see what he's doing here.
Yeah.
He's trying to he's almost, I don't want to say draft proofing, but he's kind of building a foundation so he doesn't have to reach in the draft.
Right.
And you bring in Azeez Ojulari, someone who has a proven track record of being able to get to the quarterback, just has to stay healthy. Right. You bring in Josh Uche, a guy who did have a really good season, I think in 2022, but hasn't really been able to replicate that. He was in KC for the second half of the season last year, but Steve Spagnuolo was on record saying, listen, we didn't really expect too much out of him. He couldn't get on the field. It's hard to pick up our scheme mid-season because we have so many different we have multiple fronts, and it wasn't a good situation for him.
Right.
But he's brought in he's put a lot of bullets in the gun, so he makes sure he hits his target.
There's no question about it. You know what, Tone? I look at the overall structure of this team and how everything has fallen into place. and everything is just perfect about this team. This team is Camelot right now in terms of players, restructuring money, moving ahead to a new season in 2025 as the defending champions. The target's going to be on their back. Everybody who plays them is going to be their Super Bowl. And let's face it, they have a difficult schedule coming up when you look at some of the teams they have to face in 2025. A lot of times when a team puts its eggs all in a basket for that ultimate goal to win that Super Bowl and it works out for them, what happens the next season? They have to gut the team. Now, the defense basically has been gutted, but then, again, the offense is intact. And the young players that contributed significantly to this defense are coming back. So this team is in great shape. Unlike a lot of teams that the trapdoor opens on them once they've had a good measure of success. And even if they don't win the Super Bowl, they still bottom out because so many players played themselves into phenomenal contracts elsewhere with the other teams. This Eagles team is still in a very good place right now across the board, even with the defensive deflections. Or defections, I should say. Even with the defensive defections, this team overall is still in a very good place when you stack them up against the rest of the teams in the NFC.
Yeah, you bring up a very good point. When teams really put all their chips in on the table just to win that Super Bowl, it's really hard to bounce back from that, especially when you think about what they leveraged, right? The perfect example for that is the Los Angeles Rams in 2021. They traded so much of their future for that Super Bowl draft picks wise, to the point where the GM came out with T-shirts that said "F them picks." You know what I'm saying? They really leaned into it. But what they've been able to do, what they've been able to do to bounce back from losing all that equity has been pretty phenomenal for the Rams. They came into a 2022 season where they went 5-12, so they really leveraged a lot for that Super Bowl. Very different situation for the Philadelphia Eagles, who are going to have north of 20 draft picks between this upcoming draft and the 2026 draft. So Howie Roseman, to your point, has really positioned his team like Camelot, man.